All right, good morning and welcome to Section 8 Consulting. Today, we've got a lot to discuss. So, we're rolling into 2026 and we're looking at the new policies they're going to be adopting regarding HUD. And one of the big factors we're going to be looking at is the 2-year limit, which will be imposed likely with the approval of Congress next year. So, we know between vouchers at 4 million people, roughly, another million or so in subsidized housing. So I want to be very clear. The new rules for 2026 will affect all of those, whether you receive a subsidized housing, low-income housing, affordable housing, a housing voucher across the board. This will affect you. So to make clarity, I've got a bit more information, and this has been kind of drip-fed because the administration doesn't choose to disclose a lot from the beginning. Now, they're going to make a full disclosure, obviously, with approval of Congress, but as it stands now, I've already see one thing I certainly can see is I already know where some of the loopholes will be with this, and my office will be working very quickly to utilize any loophole the administration fails to put in place. Okay, that's part of my job. Any good consultant would. So don't badger me too badly for that. My job is to assist clients. It's not to assist the executive level. It's not there to assist any company that underwrites policies for the state. If they mess up, that's their problem. I encourage them to rehold Congress, and this time don't hire 16-year-olds from Harvard and Yale to write your policies, okay? Because I will exploit the shit out of them to the limit of the law. By the way, guys, I'm not a Starbucks fan, but does anybody know if Frappuccino has caffeine in it? I can't tell. I like cold coffee, and I'm not sure if this is even coffee. I'm not sure what it is. I could probably Google it, but if you know, let me know. All right, so 2-year requirements. So one of the things that I'm already looking at very closely is, we're looking at roughly 5 million people with vouchers and subsidies. That means if we put a 2-year time limit, roughly 1.4 to 1.5 million within the first 2 years are going to lose that voucher, okay? It's going to put another million or so on the streets. Now, that's presumptive. We don't know if it'll be one giant tidal wave, but to be honest with you, the pandemic was a great testing ground to see how things happen. Does it happen all at once, or does it happen kind of as a slow tidal wave building up, all right? I would imagine this will be a slow wave, and it'll continue to build. So what we'll see is roughly about half of all participants in Section 8 housing and other programs that they're eliminating likely will become homeless or without the program itself. So let's talk about exclusionary policy. That's what I'm looking at. Yep, it's my channel. If I want to take a sip of coffee, that's my problem, right? All right, so I can't tell you what they're going to do with veterans. All right, so I'm going to exclude that from the conversation because I don't know. But if any, and we have confirmation of this, if any household has a person with a qualified disability or a person that is 62 years of age or older, you will not be in the 2-year requirement. You will also not have any work requirements, okay? Now, that does not exclude the fact that if the household has a senior or a disabled person, it doesn't exclude the fact that other people that are on that voucher may potentially have work requirements, okay? But it doesn't mean you're going to be capped at a 2-year limit. So we're expecting half the people out there to lose assistance within the first 2 years. And I don't know if you have an ability to apply again. They have not clarified that. This could be a one-shot deal. My understanding is the executive level, the president and Congress view it as this. Section 8 technically was created a long time ago, 50 to 80 years ago. I'm still undetermined as how long ago, but we do know this. It was designed for temporary assistance. It was never designed to be long-term. This administration and its executive branch are going to make it, they're going to enforce that policy that was never enforced, and that's that this be temporary. So roughly one half of all people, around 2.5 million people, will lose all of their assistance and subsidies. The good news is for seniors and disabled and high potential for veterans, you guys will watch 10 and 15-year waiting lists completely vanish. There will not be any necessity for that anymore, which means waiting times will likely just be a few months to a year, if even that. Because I would imagine if we eliminate half the people that have temporarily been on this for 30 years, and you eliminate half the crowd, then seniors and disabilities will likely have very little weight, if any. Okay. Now, veterans are going to be included. I know this administration is a big supporter of veterans. The only thing that I can imagine at this point would be that Mr. Trump will allow the veterans, the VA and the Veterans Administration to sidetrack funding specifically for veterans, and there'll be zero waiting lists for them. And they will be administrated completely through the VA and not part of all this. Okay. So we don't know that. I'm only taking a guess. If I had to think like Donald Trump and I set a plan in motion and I wanted Congress to approve it, and I make no mention of veterans whatsoever having to meet any of these requirements, then I would imagine that veterans will have a separate line of funding, and that funding cannot be touched. It will not be administrated through the state. It'll be handled by the government, since it is a government matter. And these are, all veterans are at one point have been government employees, whether they fought war or fought behind a desk. Okay. So I think we can find out more about that. There'll probably be special rules for them as well. But I imagine they'll have zero wait time, and they'll likely be highly funded. He's made that a very pressing issue for his term. I'm going to answer a few questions. And again, guys, we're speculating because 2026 is not here. We can only look at the track record and history and decisions and policies so far through the administration to determine what some of the potential outcomes is. So it's called speculation. All right. So good morning. Punked my video. Nice name. Few will survive what's coming. That is true. That is the goal. This was temporary assistance that ran 80 years. Okay. The game is over. So we should expect half of all people in subsidies, half of all people in vouchers likely will be kicked out of the program. If they don't allow you to reapply on a 2-year term limit, then you're out. That's it. That's the end of it. It's a one-shot deal if they choose to make it so. We don't know the policies and procedures for that yet. All right. Karan knows says, hello, everyone. Hello to you. Jellybean 17. Wow. Yeah, wow. Of course. Well, Mr. Trump is a shaker and a mover, and he's shaking the program, and a lot of people falling out of it. That's how it works. I can't even say this name, but one person says, yes, there's caffeine in that coffee, and I appreciate you letting me know. I'm only good at one thing, guys, and that's consulting work. I'm not a very good mechanic. I don't often know what I'm drinking, including coffees and all the different brands. So I appreciate you illuminating me on that. Freak out tent. I like that. Reminds me of a few of my homeless buddies from the day. Freak out tent. We're all here because we're not all there. Well, sometimes that can be true. Can't hate on that. Everybody's got issues. Look, my family's not immune. We got plenty of batshit crazy people in my own family. That doesn't mean anybody here is batshit crazy. It doesn't mean because you have mental illness you're batshit crazy. But you'll just learn that that's how I tend to use my words. All right. So, Jason Can. Hello. I am seeing Section 8 waiting lists. I've been on over 6 months. My mom is also with me. Was disabled and a senior citizen. And something on a waiting list. Is there anything I can do to speed that up? Well, Jason, I don't want to be a smart ass, but honestly, you could reach out to my office. I'm sure I could assist you with that. We offer casework and different things. By the way, guys, if you don't know this, I'm the owner of Section8Consulting.com. I've been in this industry for 25 years. If you look at our website, I probably assisted people with roughly 25,000 vouchers at this point. So I am no surprise to it. Published many times. But nobody's here to purchase services through my company. I get that. I'm just saying, if you need help, there's a few avenues. You can call HUD, you can call the housing authority, you can call me. There's a few other consultants out there, but I'm not convinced they're licensed to do anything. All right, moving on from there. Goes on to say, landlords are not going to like the 2-year limits. That's the first thing that comes to mind, even with me. But Here's the thing. Landlords already have a stockpile of housing, right? They've had 80 years to develop all this stockpile. They buy properties, they rent them out, it becomes profitable. Look, when you start eliminating things and you put term limits on it like this, there's going to be lots of landlords when they can't get somebody with a 2-year voucher, can't get somebody with a permanent long-term voucher, they're going to be chasing 2-year vouchers. You know why I know that? Because even before this would be implemented, we already ran a program called Housing First for the homeless, and lots of landlords accepted that, and that was with 2 year. It was a 2-year program, which basically ran as such. It allowed a person through permanent supportive housing or rapid rehousing to utilize a Housing First voucher for 2 years, up to 2 years. Or as long as you qualified, but no longer than 2 years. It worked out fine. Landlords accepted. Look, if that's all that's left, then that's what landlords will have to accept. I think the bigger mission for most landlords right now is when they roll out this policy and rule for 2026, you better pay attention to seniors and disabled, the ones you've ignored so long, and you better get one in your building. Logic would dictate if the only loophole to you having a long-term voucher is either being disabled or a senior, then you better go down to the church house, talk to somebody that's a senior, and move them in. Okay, you see somebody on the side of the street in a wheelchair, you might want to offer him a spare bedroom, accept a voucher in your spare bedroom. Why? Because it's going to be the one reason why you're going to end up having a voucher longer than 2 years. You need somebody homeless or disabled. You need somebody that is either disabled or a senior in your home. I mean, that's the reality of this whole video. The only exclusionary way you're going to get a voucher that lasts more than 2 years is if you have somebody in your family composition, somebody in your household that is a senior or disabled. It's time to go make friends, guys. It's simple. I mean, the equation here is super simple. Okay? I understand nobody wants to open up their door to strangers, but look, you got time, don't you? But I mean, if that is the policy and rule of the federal government, and they hand the money down to the state and they say, look, if your little family there, you and your children, ain't nobody disabled, ain't nobody a senior, then you're out of here in 2 years, okay? And you're not going to get this again. You better go become friends with somebody that's 62 years and older, or somebody with a qualified disability. That's the only way you're going to keep it long term. I think that's perfectly feasible. It's a giant loophole, in my opinion. I'm sure they'll be looking to close parts of that out. But I mean, and also just because you have a person in the household that may be a senior or disabled doesn't mean the other people are going to have work requirements. Okay. It doesn't mean that 25 people are going to live in one house with one 62-year-old senior and they all just not have to work. I'm pretty sure. So, but we don't have the policies and rules yet. But look, that's the things that I'm looking at is rules, policy, and procedure with this. And they're going to be more as we approach that line of 2026. And it's going to be closer and closer as Congress does special election. And and all this is all hanging on one thing. And that's if Congress approves this. That means that the Republicans take and continue to control the House, and Democrats don't take it. This will get voted in. This is what Donald Trump wants. This is going to happen, and this is what we're closely monitoring is to see whether or not the House will get flipped under special election for 2026. And we'll certainly know by next November. If it doesn't get flipped, this is all coming to fruition. Let me explain another thing, guys. Donald Trump is turning the system into what it was designed to be, okay? As strangely as that sounds, this is how it was supposed to be run to start with, okay? But too many hands have been in it, and too many people have been in it too long. This is why the system became strained. This is why we have a long waiting list. So the reality of it is those of you that are out there that are neutral or Democrats or whatever it may be, look, even if Mr. Trump were to suddenly pass away this year, okay, tomorrow, okay, let's just think of it that way. Even if that happened, no U.S. president, Republican or Democrat, is going to go back into the system and rebuild it. It's already gutted. There are no HUD employees. There's only 10% of the HUD employees that used to be. They have already taken down 90% of HUD's website. 30 to 40,000 pages of the website gone. Most housing authorities in the nation, without the funding that since this administration has cut the funding, most of it critically affects housing authorities. Most housing authorities will see insolvency within a year or less, likely before 2026. Without the funding that, with Donald Trump cutting this money, there's nothing for housing authorities to operate on, which in turn causes insolvency. Since housing authorities can only operably run a few months in the future without needing more money, it's over with. So the whole infrastructure will be gone by the time we reach the end of the year, if it's not already permanently damaged. And so back to the topic of, what if Mr. Trump were to pass away or even abdicate this office to another president? It wouldn't matter. No U.S. president, Republican or Democrat, is going to go, oh, by the way, I'm going to run for election this year. I'm a Democrat. I'm going to run for election this year. I'll make it my number one agenda to not support school systems, to not support seniors. I'm going to spend all of my time and energy in my 100 days to rebuild HUD. Nobody's going to fucking elect anybody into office that wants to touch this again, okay? Now, I'm not suggesting the Democrat couldn't come back in the next election and win it, but the most a Democrat would be willing to do at this point, he's not going to revive this shit. You guys need to let it go. The best that's going to happen is, look, he'll raise the funding so everybody can be more comfortable, but there won't be no reinvention. So I'm telling you guys, you need to start wrapping your mind around the concept. This is over with. We're going to 2-year limits. It's going to have work requirements, and we need to look at the policies and procedures of who we can squeeze in there and how we can possibly make situations work. And we should also consider right now that roughly half of all people in the system now will not be there. It will create homelessness, but I mean, every big change has a side effect. Okay, sometimes you have to make changes regardless of the side effect. And in this case, the big change is going to cause other issues, but we can't run our country based on what we believe the side effect will be. Sometimes we just have to endure, like we endure wars. And again, I want to make it very clear. I am not, this is not a channel, or my channel is not designed to be a political platform. I don't in any way qualify both Democrats or Republicans. I'm not getting in that business at all. Okay. Just to make everybody clear here, I don't support either party. I just, I support what I do with me and my cat, my own little private world. You guys can make your own decisions based on the best information you have. It's okay. So going back, let me go ahead and answer a few more questions here. I'm all over the map because it's been a week now. I'm one of those people, once I've had a little bit of downtime, it's hard for me to kind of get back in there. So I'm kind of warming up my vocals and getting back in there a little bit. That's why I'm not as well spoken as I am in some of my videos. All right, Queen, thank you for the great updates. Awesome, thank you. High Tech Cap says, can you explain? Lord, I'd spend probably most of my career explaining. I'll try 15 years and 2,000 videos. I've explained the hell out of everything I can think of. You have to be more specific. Psalms 91 says this is a test, of course. I think all of life is a test. The minute you take in your first breath as a baby, it's a test. The question will be with all great tests is, will you pass it, and can you do so with dignity? My son's mother goes on to say something is wrong. Twice my screen is blacked out and you were not there and I had to restart. Well, you might have an old computer and maybe it's time for a new one. Amanda, what is qualifying disability? That's a great question, Amanda. The very next video this channel makes, we're going to discuss exactly what qualifies you as disabled. We're going to talk about what permanent qualifications are, what HUD qualifications are, what the DOJ describes them as, and what's actually required. Then we're going to have another material conversation as to what will be required under 2026. So first, I need to teach you about what disability is and how it works under HUD, because many of you believe simply receiving a disability check qualifies you as disabled, and if you don't have that, you're not disabled. Well, there's separate requirements for each, okay? So we're going to cover that at length Tuesday, either at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time or 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if I'm really late, 6 p.m. Either way, that day I'll put up a pre-video which will show you about what time that day the video will land. Okay, why? Because I don't really give a damn when I make videos. I make them when I feel like it, and until we get to that day, I'm not sure what I'll have time to do. It'll happen, I just don't know what time. Okay, just being upfront with you guys. Moving on, Sheila Davison, hello, good morning. I'm gonna take another sip of my frappuccino with caffeine. So I want to go back to that other question. Do you think many landlords will want Section 8 tenants? Of course. With half the portfolios being cleared, which means half the landlords will likely lose their tenants, that means that's a place for a lot of landlords to step in. Of course. Look, for every place you have something that subtracts from what you're trying to do, you're always going to have something else that's going to add to it. So while it's a negative benefit as a landlord, it will be a big benefit. I'm already talking to them. I know our office deals with several hundred landlords every year, whether through questions, Q&A, through working for them to ensure they have to meet occupancy or other rules and policies. And one thing I've already heard, been advising my own landlords is, look, stay tuned for 2026, because this will be a great opportunity to not only be able to buy properties and other portfolios and the other landlords that have given up, but it'd be a chance for you to probably expand your portfolio and gain a lot more tenants and a lot more opportunity. Look, anytime there's changes, there's more opportunity. If you view it the wrong way, then you're scared to help your portfolio and worry about this and that. For your landlords, this is a great opportunity. Why? Because you've got around 4,000 housing authorities that won't have funding, that will go insolvent, have to sell their portfolio. Well, look, there's going to be lots of people with vouchers and needing subsidies that are going to need housing. And you can pick up right where that housing authority ultimately failed. And I'm going to explain more about that later, okay? Just keep in mind, I don't have a degree in economics. Yes, I just belched, excuse me. All right, high-tech cap, the states will pick it up. Yep. So just to be clear, guys, 2026, we're going to be issuing federal funds down to the states. The states will use their infrastructure to issue vouchers and determine whether they want to continue to support any type of subsidized, affordable, and low-income housing, okay? There will be 2-year caps on vouchers and any type of subsidy, low-income housing, any type of funding that gives you housing or a voucher. And it will be in complete state control, with the exception of Title 24, that says that certain permissible things under federal law, under Title 24, must continue to exist, okay? The exclusion areas are: you will not receive work requirements, you will not get a 2-year voucher or subsidy if you have a person at present that is 62 years old that's in the family composition or under the voucher, or a person that is qualified as disabled. The next video we will be issuing Tuesday will cover the whole dynamics of disability, what HUD views it as, what the federal government views it as, and how you could potentially have a person that may be disabled, or you could be disabled and not realize it. You do not, and I want to repeat, you do not need to have a disability check in order to prove disability. The standard from HUD and the federal government is much lower than the requirements that you would typically see if you were trying to receive a disability payment, okay? Moving on from there, Queen claps and gives me a smiley face. I appreciate that. Can always use one of those early in the morning. Gina, I'm 62 on state Section 8 voucher, was just approved for another. Oh, you're double safe. You're already in the infrastructure of states, so there's nothing to really transfer for you. You're already on a state voucher, so you're good. Psalms 91, I'm in appeal status for disability. Will I be affected? Well, you know what? Your appeal status to receive a disability payment is a very high standard of disability, okay? If you prove that, kudos to you, then you're in. But you don't even need it. The standard under HUD is much lower, and you will likely be approved anyways. The only way for me to determine that would be join us Tuesday, where we talk about exactly what's permissible to be disabled, how HUD sees it, how federal regulation sees it. Freak out sense, the end is near. Well, of course, it's always near. You know, Jesus has been arriving to the planet. He's been on a flight 717 for around 5 billion years. He'll arrive shortly. Like, there's always a beginning and ending to everything. Okay, we're always dying, we're always living, right? It's, that's just what life is. There's lots of beginnings and ends. Don't be so saddened by that. Learn to accept adversity, change, and learn to deal. It's surprising to see so many people comment about the end because, look, everything has to change. Nothing remains the same. Nothing ever has on Earth. All right. Adele Williams. I like that name. Can PBC assignment to a unit be converted to HCB for the same unit? Well, here's the thing, Adela Williams. Well, I could answer that in a couple of months. It won't even matter because you'll be transferring to a state voucher under the new system, and everything that you're asking will be irrelevant. Holly Corbin, I'm still on a waiting list, and you're number 486 on the list. I've been waiting July, 6 years, senior low income rent. Well, Holly Corbin, considering the approval of the new system, we're getting state vouchers and eliminating the federal system for that will change for you. Okay. The big key metric here, guys, is you need to pay attention to what's going to happen in 2026. Once we have approval, then there's going to be big changes. That means that housing authorities and HUD will no longer issue vouchers. Federal funding will be sent to the states. States will determine who gets what and for how long and for what reasons. That's why we're covering that Tuesday. I know that's hard for a lot of you to digest because you're thinking, okay, well, how does this work? How does that work? And why is it for this long? Well, we're a couple of months away and we're going to get our answer. In between that, as we get answers from the administration, the executive level, or any other branch, I'll bring it to you guys quickly. If most of you already know, our channel was only the second person or second company in the U.S. to actually bring this up. We brought it up for even the national news. We already knew about term limits of 2 years. We already knew about work requirements. This was part of the reason I'm discussing this with you guys today. Kayla Marie, what do you think will happen with project-based housing? Well, the housing authority, after they receive no funding, will become insolvent. And then they'll have to sell up their portfolio, and then that'll create great investment opportunities for many of you landlords. And then landlords have the option, obviously, to accept 2-year vouchers or permanent vouchers for those that are seniors and disabled. So it'll make a transition to market, basically. Okay. Tis, I'm 65, had EHB over a year and living in an apartment I chose. Well, Tis, there's no problem with that. You're not facing anything too much different. Whatever you have will likely be transferred in 2026 to the state system. Psalms 91 says, what time Tuesday? Well, I'm looking at 3 potential times based on my very busy schedule. It could be at 10 a.m. Central Standard. It could be, 10 a.m. It could be 4 p.m. And if I'm really dragging behind that day, then probably 6 p.m. Central Standard. So 10, 4, or 6. Most of you can probably count on 10 a.m. Central. Remember, I'm like most humans. I like to make videos when I'm in the mood. I'm not one of these robotic lollipop heads that gets on YouTube and can just make the same videos the same day at the same time. That's a young folks game. I'm older. Maybe I don't feel well that morning. I don't want to go make a video. I'll lie to y'all and say, I'll go, oh yeah, I'm going to make a video Tuesday at 10. Shit. And then, no, I ain't going to do that. We'll just have to see, but I can tell you it'll be one of those 3 times. Better to be honest with folks. That way you understand. If you're over 25, then you know where I'm coming from. Truth Seeker says, this is horrible. Well, I didn't think it was good news. Otherwise, I'd have instead of writing breaking news, I'd have wrote bad news. Look, it isn't perfect. Just think of this as getting into a minor fender bender. It'll get better, okay? I'm 68, disabled, and I'm currently living in public housing. Does this affect you? It'll affect you until you turn 60. Oh, no, 68, you said? No, it doesn't affect you, okay? The only thing you'll need to do is transfer to the state system. That's it. They'll bring the paperwork to you, and you'll handle it from there. Curlo, why does everybody with a super interesting name or a super interesting ethnic name commenting today? Because y'all making it hard for me. I'm a simple Cajun from Louisiana. A lot of y'all's names are hard for me to to figure out, and I can't do any checking online if I'm in a live video. So I'm going to just call you Mr. or Mrs. Moore. EHV is an emergency housing voucher. Has that program been refunded? I don't think that there's ever a refund of programs, if that's what you meant to say. But let me just tell you this concerning EHV, or what they call emergency housing voucher. The funding's been terminated for that. You will never see that again. Okay, so you need to make a move to start applying for state level vouchers. Okay, there will no longer be emergency housing vouchers. It's not funded. All these programs will end. None of this stuff's going to be here next year. Okay, there'll only be one thing. It'll be the state receiving federal funds and the state level voucher. All these other programs, 90,000 programs we've been going through the last 80 years through HUD. Trump wants them gone, so they're gone. He'll have money in the state will determine it, the state will issue a state voucher, and that's what you get. I know you guys want to go through all the acronyms under Title 24 that allow all these different programs we've all stuck in there in the past 80 years. Every politician wanted a different program. A lot of that stuff's has already been wiped out. Truth Seeker says, I just inherited a property plan for 10, 12 units. I was going to do a assisted living or Section 8 housing, but it looks like the student housing might be the way to go. Not necessarily true, Truth Seeker. You get 10 to 12 units. Look, once they eliminate half these people that are on a voucher out there, you're going to be able to get long-term clients, something you've never been able to do in the system. You'll be able to get permanent housing vouchers, and the ratio of them, the likelihood of them moving will be nilch. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't look at students, but look, students come and go. They graduate, right? They move on with their life. You got a senior or disabled, the likelihood of them moving is very low on a permanent voucher. You could have them for 30 years. It would be unwise to make a split decision like that. Not only that, but the state could also grant incentives that could greatly increase you wanting to accept somebody with a permanent voucher or even a 2-year voucher. They can give you as much as $5,000 per lease if they grant those incentives under congressional review. Okay, I would say speak with my office about that before you make any complete decisions. Look, we work with 200-300 landlords a year. My office doesn't just handle casework helping clients get vouchers. It also helps a lot of landlords, and we worked with projects up to $50 million in LA and San Francisco and in New York, where there was a gigantic investment. We will also work with multinational companies that have a portfolio of greater than 1,500 homes and helped on occupancy. I think that the adjustment you'll make is we're entering into a new system, and we're still waiting for their policy and procedure. But the old days of waiting for a housing quality inspection for months and dealing with the housing authority, well, a lot of the housing authorities will be gone. This will all be mandated and administrated by the state. So you won't have all the clumsiness of dealing with housing authorities anymore. And it probably won't be any more delay in getting money either. So I would say before making an ultimate decision, look at the bigger picture. Look, guys, if you're a landlord and you're trying to better understand how this might play out for you, it's going to play out as a really good investment because you're going to get a very super concentrated type of clients that are likely to be more permanent, which means you can offer better infrastructure, better buildings, and you don't ever have to worry about those people paying the rent. All right, moving on from there, I'm going to have another sip of coffee. My stomach is just not doing it today. Tomorrow, Bill, these comments are moving so quick, I'm having a hard time. If you get skipped, it's not personal. It just means I can't cover every comment. All right, I'm going to try here. Christopher John, something strange happened. I am now getting my disability check and my retirement at 58. My income has doubled. Is this an example of all the cuts? I would say this is an example of potential changes at the federal level. Because if you don't know this, Donald Trump is now redoing 14 different federal agencies. He ain't playing around. He is reorganizing 14 or 15 federal agencies at current. He's already wiped out HUD. Hey, look, HUD's renting a space at the Aerospace Center. They're renting an office, a cubicle. There's nothing left to HUD, okay? If you don't think he ain't going to do that to the other agencies, you're wrong. He's chop. He's got his machete out, and I'm look, there won't be no fat love. There's not going to be any sacrificial lamb with Mr. Trump. If he's going to take over these 14 federal agencies, a lot of you said he wouldn't be able to give ICE access to Medicare, and you see what happened. Supreme Court gave it. Look, guys, this is over with. This is all over with. Mr. Trump now pretty much runs every part of the government, and if it displeases him, it will go. Okay? Make no foolish intent here. The man has complete control now at this point. There's not, even if you put up every senator and every congressman in the U.S. against the man, they wouldn't stand at this point. That doesn't mean that my conversation advocates for Trump. I'm not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat. I'm not part of any of that jazz. I'm just saying you'd be foolish to think this man's not going to continue what he's doing. Okay? We have to be realistic. That's how it goes. Hey, but the good news is we don't all live forever. All right, so to clarify, Psalm number 1 says to clarify, I have low-income housing due to homelessness and appeal. So we cannot discuss the terms of your housing in an open channel like this, okay? You're talking about a federally protected conversation. You can reach out to my office, okay? I can answer questions, but I'm not going to get into somebody's case. Higher Cullen goes on. What about Section 202 senior housing? Gone. Look, guys. Let me make it very clear. All these programs y'all are in, gone. 2026, the federal government will issue a check to each state. The state will run it from there. If the state wants to continue to support 202 or 811 arrests, then they will continue to do so. There's been no indication of that. Otherwise, next year we'll move strictly to a state system. It is going to be one program, one voucher. You either get a voucher permanently or you get one for 2-year work requirements. There are no other programs going to be left. Gone. No EHV, no emergency housing voucher, no rapid rehousing, no permanent supportive housing, no 811, 211, 202, and every other code under Title 24, okay? That is the clarity of what's happening. We're unwinding the entire system, and we're doing one voucher. If you don't believe me, then take a look at what he's already written in the report. Go to whitehouse.com or congress.gov, and you can see for yourself what the intent of the administration is, okay? The executive branch makes their message very clear. One voucher, that is it. All these other programs, gone. Half the funding, the support of these programs, gone. With that, housing authorities, gone. There's no place in the future for housing authorities, okay? There's no money for them. That's been cut off for 2026. Housing authorities, sell the building, go home. Your generation of doing business is over with. Unless the state, each individual state decides they want to partner or do something with you to give you money, then you're done. Sell the building, go home. You're done. It's very clear. I don't need to make up anything. You go directly to the White House, look at the skinny bill that he's put in place, or you can go to Congress and see what's approved and what's not. It makes no distinction there. They're not joking about this. So come to that understanding and realization real quick. All these programs you guys are in, over with. Now you may apply or transfer whatever it is that you have to get a state voucher in place. Okay, it doesn't mean you're going to be left homeless. It just means that when they activate this and Congress approves it, then you need to make in a uniform line to go and trade in whatever it is that you have and whatever program that you're in, and you will receive state funding, state level fund voucher. That's it. Okay, Mr. Trump's not going to support 58,000 programs anymore. HUD is gone for the most part. That's what I've been trying to convey. You guys are having a hard time with that. And I don't need you to believe me. The evidence is right there. If you look at exactly Mr. Trump's plan on the whitehouse.gov, I don't need to make up anything. All right, so I was told the Public Housing Authority has closed. Look, most of them, here's what's interesting about housing authorities. Right now, if you type in the word, if you go into Google and you hit the word news and you type in the word HUD you'll see the housing authority saying, oh, we've frozen the funds. No, you're out of funds. Quit lying to the public. You're out of funds. Pretty soon, you'll be out of employees. And then after that, all that money, all that funding over the last 80 years you've been receiving to buy buildings and have a big portfolio of houses and put people in project housing, you'll be selling that too. Okay? There is no future for the housing authorities anymore. There's none. Do you think the state, let me ask you a question. If the state receives a big check from the federal government, do you think the state is going to want to sit there and write out checks to every housing authority in the state? That'd be like sitting there and being a state agency and go, oh shit, we've got 91 counties. We got to divide this up to 91 different housing authorities. Now we're going to give them a check, but this check we're not going to allow them any money to even pay a light bill. It's over with. So what you'll see is as we get closer to the special election and no funding for 2026 for these housing authorities, you'll see them all close. There's nothing left for them. Now, some might survive. Some smaller states will go, hey, you know what? We have a housing authority that's run pretty ethically. We think they can remain in control. And so we'll just issue the funds because we don't really want to be bothered with it. Big states, that would be nearly impossible because the state does not want to be also both the administrator receiving a big check for every housing authority and then having to deal with housing authorities nonsense. Oh, please, housing authority, please be ethical. Please talk to people nicely. Please quit talking to people like trash. Please follow all the rules. Quit stealing money. The state's not going to want to deal with housing authorities. The best advice I give most housing authorities, you might just close your doors, sell your portfolio, and just go home. It's over with, okay? I mean, you've got a 5% chance that this is not going to happen. Maybe 5. So the days of housing authority, in my opinion, are pretty much over. Unless the state wants to support that, I just don't see it. Why would it want a dysfunctional mess to have to manage? I just don't see it. All right. Ella Gibbons. I was told the public housing authority has been closed. All right. So after I've been on ranting, and so we got somebody named YouTube. No more porting to other state. We don't know the circumstances behind portability, but I do know one thing. At the federal level, people are granted a right to portability. It seems to me logical that should remain in place, interstate cooperation. So that means when the Trump administration makes the final legislation and bill for this to be approved for 2026, he can write in there that, people should have the ability to port. And I think that's a good idea because that means that states can take the financial burden and give it to another state, right? Why would you not want to have portability when, let's say you're the state of Florida, okay, and you receive X amount of dollars and you can ship somebody's ass off to another state and make it their financial problem? Portability would be the smartest thing the state could do. You could call it portability wars. Can we port them? You know what else it reminds me of? Deportation. Let's deport that voucher holder. Let's deport him to Alabama. So I'm pretty sure if it favors the state's going to do it. It's awful to make a joke about portability and being deported and all that. But, I mean, you see where I'm coming from. If it favors the state, I'm sure that most states are going to want to cooperate in portability, okay? And I didn't mean to, if I offended anybody, well, tough shit. It's my channel. All right? That's how I see that. Then who's going to pay our rent if they are closed? Who's going to pay your rent? Well, the state will pay your rent. I swear sometimes, guys, I feel like some of you guys are not listening here. Or maybe you're just coming in late. Kingdom's Child's Moments. No funding for 2026. I didn't say no funding. That's you saying that. Half the funding. It means that any money that Donald Trump issues to the state must be issued per voucher. There's no money for the housing authority. There's no money to go out and build basketball courts, community programs, and all the other jazz, okay? That's what it means. Psalm 91 quaintly says it's a test. Thank you for reminding us every now and then here through the chat. All right, MB, do you get to continue with the voucher if you turn 62? Well, hell, you turn 62, and that changes. You're going to be a popular person in your household because that means you move on to a permanent voucher. Yes. Now, you keep in mind, states could lower that, okay? They can say 55 if they want, but the federal standard right now is 62. So we'll be looking. I'm be looking at the age. I'm be looking for every loophole. If I find out later that it's 55, are they changing to 55? I'll let you guys know. If the right rules and policies directed at disabilities, I'll let you know. Our next video will be about disability. All you folks out there that have been mean and ignored your old, now would be a great time to become friends. Straighten up, act right, because you're gonna want somebody. Remember grandma you ain't talked to in the last 20 years? You might want to be her friend now. Remember Aunt May? You might want to quit talking shit to that woman and let her live in your house, because it may be the only damn reasons you have a voucher for the long term. I think it's rather compelling how the system gets redesigned and is going to force families back together, because you ain't going to have a choice. It seems like to me the old and the disabled are going to have the most control in the home. You give any sass in there to somebody that's got a disability or is a senior and they decide to move out, well, you're fucked. That means the most important person in your household is a senior and a disabled person. You talk smack to them, well, you might as well get your sidewalk flip-flops on and get walking, because there won't be a voucher for you greater than 2 years. So you guys need to start thinking about how you treat all these decades. Y'all been treating the seniors and disabled so badly. We'll see how that works out for you now. They'll be the ones ultimately you're going to want. They're the prize holder in your home. You should have treated them right to start with, to be honest. You should have had considered the disabled more often when you parked in their fucking handicap spot, right? When you thought the lady over 62 was senile and you thought it was funny. Now it ain't so fucking funny when it means your voucher. You know, I see so much disenchanting behavior among people, especially concerning the old. And now you need them. Not only do you need them, but they're going to be the ones that run the ship. The ship solely floats with them. It'll sink without them if you want that voucher longer than 2 years. So you better get real and get right. All right, I'm hoping 55. I hope too, in many ways, 55 or somewhere up in there between 55 and 62. They'll consider budging a bit, because it would mean a lot for Americans. You're funny, but you're so not. Well, look, I've always had an entertaining way of doing things. You can't blame me. I grew up poor, white trailer trash in a trailer park in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I spent most of my life and career trying to be a little bit better than that. That's what happens when in the lower parts of Louisiana. Those Cajuns aren't that great. There's one thing God gifted me with, and that was the ability to be able to help people with housing. So I'm respectfully a little bit of both. And I make that, I take no pride in saying that, but let's just be honest. We all come from something, either something or nothing. I came from a lot of nothing. And I'm trying to prevent you guys that have a whole lot of nothing from reaching homelessness. That's the seriousness here, okay? We can joke about me and my disgruntled family, my poor upbringing, and probably not even wearing rubber boots to school in Louisiana or riding the alligator, as they put it. We didn't have a lot going up, so I understand it. Everything that I have is because I worked for it at this point. I probably worked harder than any of my family members because I was adopted. All right, moving on. Let's see. They are not the ones who should have been in the forefront in the beginning. They deserve this help. They do. And finally, they're going to get that help. Veterans, seniors, and disabled are going to get that help. And veterans likely will get it the best of all. Second to that will be seniors and disabled. The rest of you, well, you get 2 years and then you have to figure it out from there. I advise going down to the nursing home, talking with people there and make friends. Go to church, talk to people, see who might be a good roommate, okay? Because without them, you're not going to survive far with this. Should have been doing it anyways. Shouldn't have to bend your arm behind your back. Hail Mary and mercy. That's right. So right. You're so right. I like your style. I appreciate that. The only style I got is, look, guys, we've all been lied. Many of you have been lied to. Many of you don't know what's going on. The other half have been lied to. You may not always like the things I have to say. It might make you angry. It might piss you off. It might even be offensive if you're religious. But my goal here is not to soothe your feelings. The goal here is to help you understand the acquisition that will be made, the change of the system itself for next year, whether you appreciate it or not, and help you survive it. My other job mainly is to look at policy and procedure and figure out a way to make an impossible situation work for my clients. I've done so successfully over my career that there isn't a doubt whether you Google my company on any platform or social platform, I am the most well-known consultant in the nation. And one of the few that even stood with resolve for 25 years. So there's nobody here that can say this man isn't good at his job. It doesn't mean I was successful in every case. There are people that have driven me wild and I've had to terminate their case. But many more, and tens of thousands more, we moved on. I moved a whole family of 12 out of the forest and got them a home. I've got homeless people said it was impossible to get housing. And then they called me a couple months later and said they got thrown out. And they wonder why they're homeless. But I don't compare all homeless as being the same. If I could count on every hand and toe in the county, in Harris County, Houston, how many times I've had to pull seniors out of vehicles, living in cars, freezing to death during the winter, and burning up during the summer because nobody gave a shit. Nobody. They were met with disingenuous, ugly people from the housing authority that didn't give a damn if they had a heat stroke. Surviving in there with their poodle and their dog and their cat, burning up with nothing. And the only explanation to get it was tough shit. Those days are gone. Now they're the most important thing in the system. And for that, they deserve everybody's respect. But they deserve most of all, what they deserved from the beginning was a little bit of fucking dignity that many of you don't afford. Well, I've had plenty to say. And maybe not everything I'm going to say is agreeable, but that's okay. I'm allowed to also have my personal opinion. But who here can say that I'm not being honest, that it isn't true what I'm saying? Okay? Look, guys, my name is Jay. I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com. I've been around a very long time. I'm very well known. I've been in many, many different write-ups in newspapers and articles. If you need help navigating the system, you help dealing with housing authorities, landlords. If you're a landlord that needs help understanding the system, or you're simply trying to figure out how to transition or survive the upcoming change for 2026, reach out to my office. No, it's not free. For it to be free, I need to live under the bridge and somebody had to pay my phone bill. And it'd be a really piss poor job. But what are the other options? You can call HUD, what's left of it. You can call the housing authority, but you're just going to get the answering machine they keep in the toilet and never answer. You could walk up to the housing authority, but they still don't want you to breathe pandemic. And when you do call them, you usually you get harassed or lied to. So, or the last option, call 211 or 311. You can let somebody Google an answer for you over the phone that doesn't know shit. See how far that gets you. My objective is not to ridicule these other options. I'm just saying that if the other options are complete trash and bullshit, then that's probably what it is. Okay? Maybe my choice of words are elevated, but isn't that what it really is? We're offering another empty answer. Here's a list of helpful places. Give them a call. We're sure they'll never answer. If you want answers, I have them. All right, moving on from there. Francisco Rios says, wait. OP says, great channel. Rios gives me a pink can. I appreciate that. Queen says, I appreciate your help with these updates. Taking the time to read the comments and thumbs up. Well, thank you. And thank you for the little trophy there. You know, I very rarely get thanked in my job, considering that I probably house an entire county's worth in Texas people, a whole entire county. If you looked at my total career, the number of times I've been thanked after that. Yeah, it's strange how people, they get what they need and I never hear from them again. It's not thank you, nothing. It's just, okay, I got that. See you. I saved you. I saved your ass from burning up in a car. I saved you from living in a tent in the forest. I saved you from being kicked out of Section 8 because your worker lied through her teeth. I saved you from your landlord that lied through its teeth and almost got you evicted. I saved you when you needed support but didn't have a good reason. I saved your ass when you couldn't have paid the rent and you needed an accommodation with lower, higher rents. I've saved many of your asses out there, to be honest. And I did so with great ethic. I've never once attempted to break a law for anybody. But if the law's written badly or allows it through a loophole, then that's Congress's job to pick up the football and correct that problem. I'm not here to advocate for Congress. I look for holes and I fill them. And I'll walk every person that I can through that hole until somebody decides they've had enough of my office. I have great respect for HUD. It's the housing authorities I've had so much struggle with. And I have met some amazing housing authority employees and some amazing housing authorities. There are some housing authorities in this country that should have received triple gold awards for how ethical and the way they treated it and the level of staff and care and everything. So I want to make it clear, not all housing authorities are bad. Maybe in 2026, I'm going to issue a list of housing authorities that should have been given nationwide awards for just the tremendous work they did to help people, that their screening of employees didn't permit them to treat people badly. That's high ethics. That's high moral. That's how you leave a career with the greatest concern. All right, moving on from there. I'm going to answer a few more questions, guys, but I got to be honest, I'm getting tired. And we have plenty of time to explore this on Tuesday because we want to go over disability. Francisco Rios, is that even a thing? Could be. Melody, I got picked for a voucher in Hawaii. Isn't that a lovely place? I applied 3 years ago. Good. Mary Jones, I'm 65 disabled. Try to look at that comment there, Mary Jones. 65 disabled, where do I go? Or say I have a voucher, no housing authority. Oh, well, it'll for now you have a housing authority. I'm just suggesting next year that will all be transitioned to state. Look, guys, don't worry so much about how you've already got a voucher and how to transition it. When the appropriate time gets here in 2026, then we'll go over that, okay? It's not necessary to get yourself all wired up. You're not simply going to have something one day and not another day, okay? But we need to wait till they actually issue the rules and procedures for it, okay? So you have nothing to worry about, Mary Jones. Either way, because of your age, you have nothing to worry about. You're now considered amongst the most 2 or 3 most important people out there. You're a senior, okay? You have a golden parachute of protection with this, no matter how it goes. Mateo Gutting, no friend. Brett 81, cool. Melody and want a roommate. There you go. You go down to the local homeless shelter, ask to see all the seniors and disabled. Find a roommate. There's lots of them that aren't crazy, use drugs or alcoholics. There are lots of seniors and disabled out there that can't afford housing at all. Nobody wanted them then. Now would be a good time to think about being a better human. You know? It's a good time to reflect, guys. What will you do for 2026? What are you and your family prepared to do in order to keep your housing or to be able to utilize it on a more permanent level? It's a simple requirement. Your household composition must include a person that is 62 or a person that is disabled. That person will remain the number one controlling factor in your home, because if they choose to leave, then you're done. So you need to treat your seniors and your disabled with respect. You no longer have a choice. Guys, I've had a great time talking with you. I hope as we move closer to 2026 that we are able to discuss more and more of the policy and procedure and how this is going to partake and look at potential solutions for many of you. And I'm also looking at, we're looking at the new system as a whole. This is a time of great change, and we need to learn what it means to be an adult. And that means we have to survive adversity and change. If you can't change the change, then you need to learn how to adapt. When shit gets tough, you get tough with the going, right? That's how it goes. If you're a senior or disabled, well, you don't have much to do other than wait for somebody to select you to live in your home, because it seems like the most logical way at this point to appease the requirements of the system. With that, guys, I'm going to move on. I'm going to go visit with a friend of mine who made me 17 quarts of gumbo. Sometimes you can't get that old Louisiana out of you. And so I have a good buddy of mine. Family's from Pier Part, Louisiana, and we make some fantastic gumbo. I don't know if those of you that are Southerners, and I'm sure all of you Northerners have heard about it. Just thinking about this Cajun stew almost. So we have chicken and andouille gumbo. I'm hoping to enjoy some of that today. All right, guys, I've had an outstanding time talking with you guys. If you'd like to continue to get updates as we get more information in on the new system taking place for 2026, the only option is to subscribe. Okay. And closing with that, my company is section8consulting.com. If you have more concerning issues or you need help within the system navigating or a better understanding what's going on, or your landlord would like to proceed learning more, give our office a call or an email, and we'll set up an appointment with you. All right. Thank you for your time. Bye for now.